Welcome back to He's a Giant, a pod about all things college football, all things Giants football, all things Mets baseball. I am your host, Sal, with my co-host, Monty. What's going on, man?
What's going on, man? 2 weeks in a row. We're really moving here. We're back into it. Thank you, everybody who is already here in the chat. We appreciate you. We see D Kid out there. We see Chris Rossetti out there. Thank you guys. Anybody else here? Thank you. Make sure to hit that like button. Appreciate you guys being here.
Yes, please hit like and subscribe, share it. The link to the YouTube if you get a chance. And we appreciate you guys as always. I might as well go through the stuff real quick before we always wait till the very end. You can find me at Queens_guy on Twitter. You can find Monty at MONTECRI5TO. And you can always find us both at He's a Giant Pod on Twitter. All right, Monty. Let's let some people get in here. Yes, Peter, 7:37, 9:37. I get it. I get it. So let's get to business. The Giants and Joe Shane formalized their 53-man roster on Tuesday at 4 p.m. There were some mostly expected moves. There were a couple of surprise moves. And then today they had two waiver wire additions to the roster. Why don't we start with your general overview of the final 53?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely surprised me in some areas a little bit, I guess. I don't know. It surprised me with one move in particular, and some other moves I just would have gone differently. The main move that surprised me, and I think surprised a lot of people, was Elijah Chapman. It felt like they really found a role for him, and everybody kind of saw he was succeeding a lot in that fullback role. And obviously the fullback role has been kind of you know, taken out of the NFL, but it did feel like they kind of found the perfect player there for a roster spot where you got a good, situational pass rusher inside, and then you also got a fullback. You get a little bit of both worlds, but they did decide to cut him. He did end up back on the practice squad, so not the end of the world, but the guy I think could have been useful to this team. The guy we did lose would have been the guy I would have kept, and that's Greg Dulcich. He really lit it up this preseason and training camp. Has a history with Russ. I thought he would have been somebody who could have been like a big slot for us. I wanted to keep him. He ended up leaving after he didn't break the first four tight ends on this roster and went to the Miami Dolphins practice squad. So that one hurt a little bit to see. Again, I mean, you went to a practice squad. It's not the end of the world. If we decide we want him back, we could just sign him to a 53. But I would have kept him. What about you?
Yeah, I wasn't too surprised. I mean, I think you go position group by position group. Quarterbacks obviously were fine. Running backs, I think, were expected. I will say in the running back room, and we can get into this discussion a little bit more later. Um, I'm not the biggest Devin Singletary fan. I think he's a
Mm,
perfectly capable veteran, but I do think there are better options out there. The
yeah.
problem with him is he's got a lot of guaranteed money, and they really seem to like him. So I don't think he's going anywhere, but I do feel like he's a little bit redundant with Tyrone Tracy. And I would prefer, maybe a younger back, somebody you can have for a few more years. And there are guys out there, like Audrey Estime. But in any case, uh, from the wide receiver room, I mean, that this is my biggest gripe, um, and I think it just deserves its own discussion. But I wasn't surprised by anybody they carried. I'll put it that way from the wide receiver room.
Hmm.
Tight ends, I wasn't surprised by anything they did. It doesn't sound, at least we don't know of it yet, that like Daniel Bellinger took a pay cut, which was something a little surprising. I don't know if that's known yet, but we haven't heard anything about whether or not he took a pay cut. I mean, without hearing it, maybe he just didn't, right? Maybe they just kept him on his full 3 million salary, which
That's a
is
good
interesting.
point. I haven't really thought about that too much, but you're right. I mean, it just didn't make any sense to me that you would keep him without a pay cut because you just had at the end of the day, you're pretty tight on cap and you had the leverage to do it, and you've done it in the past. It's not something that
Yeah.
you shy away from doing. You've done it multiple times now. So
I was fully expecting that. I mean, we'll see how the season goes, but it doesn't. I haven't heard anything about it. Yeah, losing Dulcich was a little bit, I guess, disappointing, but not surprising. And disappointing in the sense that I think he offered a little bit more as a receiver than the other
Mhm.
guys. And when you tied that back into the wide receiver room, which doesn't have a lot of depth, having a guy like Dulcich does seem like a bit of a cheat code to try to offer you some depth as in the receiving room, and you just kind of you didn't really want it, I guess. And maybe they didn't think he could do it against first team type competition. Um, Fedoni, I wasn't surprised they kept. I wasn't surprised, obviously, by Johnson, and I definitely wasn't surprised by Manhurt. So it was just a matter of like Bellinger versus Dulcich, and I guess they just value the overall game of Bellinger, which is totally fine. Um, on the defensive side, man, I wasn't super surprised by too many things. I'll be honest, like I was rooting for Trace Ford to make the team, the edge rusher out of Oklahoma. But I wasn't shocked that they stashed him on the practice squad, and that's where he is right now. Um, I was a little surprised with the extra inside linebacker. They carried five. And that is a roster spot. And I was a little surprised by the seven cornerbacks that they carried and only three safeties. But today they made moves to kind of counter that out a little bit. Overall, I wasn't super shocked by anything. I want to address the move you discussed with Elijah Chapman. And
Mhm.
I said to you, like, yeah, I mean, I get it. He was a fun player to watch and they liked using him as a fullback, but he's basically like the trenches version of a gadget.
Mhm.
He's a specialist on defense where he can only really come in on like a third and long to be a pass rusher. And he's a specialist on offense on like the rarest of plays where you're going to use him as a fullback. So it's not like he's a high snap guy, you know? So
No,
I
but
don't,
like, but that's how these guys, that's how the back end guys make the roster is by being like doing multiple things. You know what I mean?
yeah. No, I mean that's fair. I just wasn't super shocked by any of it. Rooting for some stuff, maybe slightly disappointed in other things. Nothing too crazy though. I didn't feel too up or down about the roster. What I felt strange about was more today. And I don't know if you
Mhm.
want to go into details of the 53 anymore or talk about today's moves.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about the 53 more. We can, but let's get into today's moves a little bit.
Yeah, so the Giants put in two waiver claims. Remember, they're third on the waiver wire because it matches your draft slot, which means that they were highly likely to get anybody they put in a claim for, unless Tennessee or Cleveland, uh, pick them up. And I think one of the guys that picked up was fantastic. I think we were all kind of happy about that one, which was Bo Bride. Um, Bo Braid, the
Right, yeah.
safety from Maryland, who I believe the Giants had a top 30 on. They certainly had interest in him last year. And he was a really good, like kind of a box safety, hard hitting Maryland safety who was on the Ravens. They really wanted to keep him, but look, the Ravens are stacked in the secondary, and it was just a numbers game, and he ended up landing on waivers, and they were hoping to slide him through to the practice squad, but the Giants jumped on that. And I think that's really good because I think he complements our safety room really nicely with Holland and Newman and Belton. I think Bo Braid fits in perfectly as a guy who I think is going to get a lot of snaps in run support, as a box safety. I think he can do quite a bit. And a nice little added benefit of having Bo Braid is that he was kind of the leader of that Maryland defensive backfield with Deontay Banks and Jacorian Bennett. And I think he has a close relationship with Deontay Banks. So maybe the Giants are thinking bringing this guy in might help stabilize Banks a little bit. I don't know. But he's a good player in his own right. The other player that picked up was a little bit of a head scratcher, but I admittedly I've never really seen him play, so I don't know what to make of him. But cornerback Rico Payton
Mhm.
from the Saints. What did you think about that one?
It was hard to have a good instant reaction to it. It was like, okay, well, I kind of expected defensive back, so there you go. I mean, why isn't this guy Beanie Bishop? Was my initial reaction, but
Yeah, I know.
um, I don't know. Looking at like his PFF stuff from this preseason, then the grades weren't that good, but he didn't let up many yards, or like I think he left only like 9 yards receiving. So, he played, the stats are pretty decent. He's more of a special teams guy, it seems like.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know. I'm not mad about it. I was a little bit interested to see who they cut, but it sounds like, for example, they cut Gunnar Oslowski, but it sounds like, the way I think Duggan was talking about it, is this probably just going to be like a little
It's a roster
roster
maneuver.
gymnastics type thing?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Gunnar Olszewski beat out. I think you and I feel slightly differently about this, not usually, but he beat out Emir Smith-Marset for that final wide receiver slot and returner slot. I think Gunnar Olszewski showed more as a receiver and had a better camp. That's fair to say. So if
Hmm.
you go just by purely the merit of preseason, he won the job, right? I still think Smith-Marset is a better returner. And I would have probably erred on that side for that spot, but I don't think it makes a material difference
Yeah,
substantially.
I would say they're the same level. I think Smith Marset is a little bit of safer returner. Gunner's had some fumbling issues pop up in the past, and
Right.
that's the main reason he's jumped around. Gunner's also a former All Pro punt returner, so there's the upsides there too as a returner. So
It makes you think that they're genuinely concerned about that backup slot position and they were valuing that. And I think Gunner showed more there. But to me, that's a sign that you need to do something else in that wide receiver
yeah,
room. That's
I
what it really is.
I think the other thing worth noting I mentioned too is Gunner is more than a returner on special teams too. He plays all special teams units. He's a kick coverage, punt coverage type guy as well.
Yeah, no, I mean they're both good players. I don't think you can complain about either one if
No,
they had made it.
yeah,
And I
and I'm
mean,
glad
and
and I'm glad we got Ishmael Marset back.
he's on the practice squad, so in case of injury or they just want to promote him, I think that's good to have. So at the end of the day, the Giants end up with all the guys they wanted. Um,
Yeah.
let's talk about what they didn't do though, because I think that's worthy of a discussion. I think most of us felt like they could use another body in the wide receiver room.
Hmm.
They could use another body in the defensive tackle room. And many felt that they could use a linebacker. And so we didn't see a linebacker, a defensive tackle, or a wide receiver. Now, vested veterans can sign too. They don't have to go through waivers, so they may go after somebody there later. But it does seem like they're pretty content with the room they have. So let's go room by room. What do you think about the wide receiver room? I mean, let's talk about that because I think that's like the biggest part of this discussion. We have our starters and Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, Wandell Robinson, but the three depth wide receivers are Jalen Hyatt, uh, Bo Collins, and Gunnar Olszewski. Let's talk about where are you with this wide receiver
Yeah, man. I
room?
I mean, look, let's. I don't have a problem with the starting three. Um, I think, well, obviously Malik Neighbors is special, and I think when we brought him in last year, being able to knock Darius Slayton down to the 2 and knock Wandell Robinson down to 3 or vice versa, no matter how you look at it, made this room a lot better. It would look really bad if it was that was the 1 and that's a 2. And I guess that's a little bit the concern though. If Neighbors gets hurt, you're right back to that. But it also isn't much you can do to change that right now. You're not really going to add a player better than Darius Slayton at this point in the offseason. I do think that should be a goal for this team. But I do think that's somewhat more of a luxury to add like a high end 2, low end 1 type wide receiver. But it is something I would like to do at some point in time. I don't think Wandale Robinson is somebody I want to keep long term for the team, but I do think they know how to use him, and I do think he'll have a role in this offense, and I think have a more useful role without Daniel Jones here, who just checks it down to him every single time and can't hit him well where he can get yak. I think that's something that is going to help him a lot having Russell Wilson and Jaxson Dart here. The main thing to talk about is the guys after that. It would be a lot easier to sit here and be excited about this room if we felt like Jalen Hyatt could be a guy. If we felt like um, he could be a reliable field stretcher who comes in there, takes the top off the defense, comes out, and if he had to start, he'd be a good player. He'd be Darius Slayton, but maybe a little worse or something like that. But he's not that. He's been totally unreliable. And then also like I don't know, man. Bo Collins really kind of shit the bed in that last preseason game. I don't really get how he made the team. Um,
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with him, but he doesn't seem like a great special teamer. I was like that was a bad performance by him in that last game. I would have loved to bring him back in the practice squad, but I don't feel good about him being a guy we're relying on this year. So Yeah, I would like to add another guy. What are your you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are sort of like to me, I mean, those who follow me on the timeline have seen me go through it, like on the wide, especially today on my wide receiver thoughts, mainly because I had my car in for service and the idiots didn't have a loaner for me, so I was just sitting there at the dealership, like just tweeting shit, well, in the morning at like 7 in the morning. But I think there are actually three approaches that you could take that potentially are ways I would consider improving the team. Obviously, if you get a true like high end wide receiver two type available to you, I think you have to try to find a way to see if you can get that guy. That immediately improves your roster, right? If you can
Hmm.
push Darius Slayton to wide receiver three territory, whether that wide receiver two is a high end slot or an outside guy, it doesn't really matter because any way you slice it, Malik Neighbors is such a mobile weapon as a wide receiver. Just having higher level talent on the field expands upon what the Giants offense could do. And then you push Wandale to wide receiver four, and he's more of what he really should be, in my opinion, which is just an elite gadget type
Hmm.
receiver. Um, and it pushes everybody down a notch, right? And I think that changes the room quite a bit. Obviously, like you mentioned, that's hard to get. The best receiver available right now appears to be Jacoby Myers.
Hmm.
I think without a doubt he's the best receiver available. Really solid for
At
those
least
who
that we
haven't
know
followed.
of.
Right, that we know of, but I mean, we know he's available. Very solid receiver. He's about 28 years old. I think he's like 6'2", 200 pounds. Plays basically inside, outside, almost 50-50 slot and outside. Very good route runner, reliable. Like nothing flashy, but just a really solid, good route runner. Excellent hands, doesn't drop anything. And I think when you talk about wide receivers, if you had to pick two traits, and we talk about this when we do our wide receiver breakdowns, right? The two things that we really value are route running and reliable hands, because that means that you're a target that your quarterback can rely on being where you should be when you should be there, and then when the ball comes your way, you're snagging it, right? And so
Hmm.
those are productive receivers. They get a lot of targets because quarterbacks trust them. They're where they should be. The quarterback trusts them to be there. The ball comes their way, they catch the ball, they get a lot of yards per route run, right? And that's how we get the yards per route run stuff. So he's actually pretty steadily good in that. And so he's a reliable player. Nothing flashy, not explosive, not elite, but a good, solid receiver. So to me, he's the best one out there that I know of. Um, but again, he wants to get paid, and there's a whole complicating feature with that.
Yeah.
Um, and you got to trade for him. So who knows, what you got to give up. I don't think it's a lot, but other than him, if you don't have that caliber a receiver, I still would be fine, Monty, with going to the next level, which is getting a better wide receiver four. Right now, our wide receiver four is Jalen Hyatt. And as you mentioned, this guy has just not been good. Like, is flat out a non factor for 2 years. He gets a chance in camp to come in and show that he's something with this team. To his credit, he puts on weight. He works hard in the offseason. He gets a lot of praise from the coaching staff. I think they all appreciated that he put in the work. He looked a little better early in camp, but the dude got hurt over and over and over again in camp, and he completely shit the bed in the final preseason game. I mean, he dropped two really beautifully thrown balls by Jaxson Dart, and just again, like his route running is suspect, right? When even on the plays where like the ball's not coming his way, like he's taking weird angles off the snap, he's taking weird releases. He's just not reliable, right? So if you're not reliably where you should be, I don't think you're going to be a weapon for the quarterback, and he's just going to look the other way. And you're basically a waste on the field. And what's going to end up happening is you're not going to get on the field. So pushing wide receiver four down to me is a kind of an important thing, and I think that you could do pretty easily, right? Um, I think you can find guys who are wide receiver four types out there who can be wide receiver threes if somebody gets hurt, and I think that's very important because right now you're fully reliant on the other three guys, and they got to not get hurt. And if anybody gets hurt, we're kind of screwed because Jalen Hyatt's next man up, and as far as we can tell, he's not good, right? Unless something changes, he's just not good, and the whole offense could fall apart on that. That's a problem. I mean, they have a lot of faith in the guy. I don't know why, but there's a lot of eggs in that basket, and I'm concerned about it. That's my genuine concern is exactly where that Jalen Hyatt line is on this team. The third area that I would have potentially targeted getting a receiver, and by the way, wide receiver four, I would mention the guys that we had talked about targeting, and one got claimed was like the guy Palmer,
Hmm.
from the Bucks. I think the Saints claimed him. He's better than Hyatt. Guys
No,
like
yeah.
that who are veterans. Um,
He's what Hyatt was supposed to be.
exactly. A reliable speed guy, right?
Hmm.
Um, and the last group, and this is something I tweeted about, and you and I, this is more of our bag, are those unproven rookie wide receivers that what's up, Hefe? I'm reading. I'm trying to not laugh at some of the shit going
I
on
know.
in the
I'm
chat.
just
I,
giggling here.
you're laughing as I'm looking over. I try to train myself not to look at it. So it's the rookie guys, right? Like so, two rookies and one young player that I would mention. So the two rookies I'm fascinated by that went back to their team's practice squad. They did not make their team. Number one was Ricky White, the kid out in Seattle. He was from UNLV. We both liked him a lot. I think
Hmm.
he's about 6 feet tall, 190, something like that, or 6'1", 190. Outstanding route runner, like a really good route runner and solid hands. Yards per route run, for those who remember our episodes, that's one of the best metrics to kind of predict productivity in the NFL from a receiver. If you're above 3 yards per route run in college as a receiver, you're probably going to be a productive NFL player. And that's like getting into like the high end territory in college. And Ricky White was at 3.22 last year. He was over 4 the year before, like elite type production. And when you watch his tape, just a really damn good route runner, catches a lot of stuff thrown his way. He knows how to find the soft spots in zone. He's a special teams ace. He had 4 block punts um, in special teams, and we didn't go get him. I wanted to get him, but he's on the practice squad of the Seahawks. We could still get him. Um, the other guy was Ja'Cory Brooks on the Commanders.
I thought the other guy was gonna be Garrett Green.
I was leaving that for you. I wouldn't steal your thunder. I said three, right?
Oh,
So
okay,
that's
three. Okay, I thought it
so
was
I'm gonna
two.
do two. Yeah, so I'm gonna do Ricky White. The other guy is Ja'Cory Brooks, who is a big receiver, is a 6'3" receiver out of Louisville, was a former 5-star recruit from Alabama, transferred to Louisville, and in my mind, he's the only reason Tyler Shuck got drafted. He was really good. And the dude just is very productive when he's out there. The Commanders took him. He had a great camp. And I think he would have made the team if Terry McLaurin didn't sign. But when Terry McLaurin signed, he didn't make the team. And I would have taken him. He's a big receiver. He catches a lot of stuff. Again, a very productive, reliable receiver out there. I would have taken a swing on him on the traits alone. Um, and I'll let you go over your guy.
Hey, it's my guy. Garrett Green. He didn't make the Buccaneers roster, unfortunately. I'm excited by him. We talked about him on the Freak List episode. And we said back then, before, he actually had a pretty promising junior year. Senior year is awful at quarterback, but we were saying, like, hey, this guy could be like the next Julian Edelman type. And he's made a really good transition so far to wide receiver. Do I think that we're necessarily in position to add this guy to our active roster and develop him? No, he's realistically he's going to sit in the Bucks practice squad and develop. But I actually am really excited. He just got a touchdown pass, and hey, shout out another West Virginia guy, former Giant David Sills made the 53 man over in
Good for
Atlanta.
David Sills.
Yeah, happy for him. But yeah, no, I mean, those are guys I'd rather develop. Ricky White was the guy that you and I were both really high on, and you mentioned like really good special teamer. That guy makes so much more sense to me to have on this roster than Bo Collins. Um, that's the type of guy who I think could
Well,
contribute a
exactly.
little bit in
Yeah.
multiple ways.
He's an immediate impact player on special teams.
Yes,
Immediate.
at the
And
very
he's
least.
and he is a clearly superior receiver to Bo Collins. I mean, I think just looking at the college production and the college tape, like I don't think it's even close. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I like the Bo Collins story, right? He's a tough-nosed dude, he's a great blocker, plays his ass off. I think guys like that deserve credit. I just don't know what he adds to the team when you need that roster spot to potentially be a productive player or a developmental receiver that you actually believe in as a receiver. It doesn't seem like they were worried about receiver at that spot. I think they gave 2 receiver spots to special teams guys. And that's a problem when you only carry 6. So 5 and 6 are special teams aces, supposedly special teams aces, and number 4 is a guy who can't catch the football. That's a problem. Like we have an issue. So I hope that they find a veteran. I know everybody keeps saying Gabe Davis. I I suppose that he's the most likely veteran that they'll go after week 1, but is he even healthy? I don't
Mhm.
know. And is he? And let's be honest, is he even good? I mean, he's okay, but like,
Yeah.
what is Gabe Davis at this point in his career, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, but I think that's that's the intriguing guy to bring in. I mean, he's got the run blocking. He's gonna get faster into this offense than some other guys. I mean, you saw that with Isaiah Hodgins, who was also cut. Maybe you got to think about, but um, you know, you saw how fast Isaiah Hodgins picked up this offense and contributed for us. I think that could be a similar thing with Gabe Davis, and he brings the size, and I do think he is like at it healthy. I think he's a starting wide receiver in the NFL. So, um,
Is he
that's
healthy? Is the question.
yeah, that's the big question. But I think that's the one that makes the most sense to me. It's there's not a ton of options right now. You go at least there's not a ton of options that can help you right now. Is and he's really the only one. There's developmental guys who I'd prefer over Bo Collins, but I don't think those guys are necessarily guys you want on the field if any of our top three guys get injured.
No, but you could make two moves, right? You can add a wide receiver four, like a Davis or somebody of that ilk, right? Who could
Mm-hmm.
compete to play, and you could get a better developmental guy. They just happen to like their developmental guy. That's all. I mean, and I just think they're personally, I mean, look, this is what we do, right? We watch these college players all year. We watch a lot of these guys for 2, 3 years sometimes, and I think we probably have our favorites, and we're biased, but they're guys like White that are just really good players, and I feel like they get underrated, and people ignore college production a little bit too much sometimes. Um, and like we talk about this, right? The yards per route run stat is highly predictive of being an NFL player that's productive at the wide receiver position. I mean, it's pretty. Go check it out for yourselves, folks. Like, go look at it. It's alarming when you look at the guys who have the best numbers and yards per route run in college, and you match them to NFL careers. Like, it's shockingly predictive
Mm-hmm.
of good players. And you will find sleepers there, right? A couple of years ago, who was one of the highest yards per route run players in college? It was Puka Nakua,
Yeah, sure.
and he was just ignored by the league until the fifth round, and the Rams just took him. And look at him now. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he's like basically producing like a top 10 receiver in the NFL. I mean, at least he's projected to be one, right? Um, I mean, he's up there. So you can't ignore some of this stuff. I mean, it's a spiel for another day, but I feel like that's how you find some of these guys. Another guy that I loved last year, remember, Malik Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Highly productive in yards per route run, force mixed tackles, all this stuff, and he got the starting job out in Miami, and he looks pretty good. I mean, we have to see how he produces, but he looks pretty good so far. So, you know, things to consider. Anyway, I do hope we get a receiver in this room, and if we don't, then God help us, and just pray for nobody to get hurt.
Yeah.
Like nobody's allowed to get hurt. They're not allowed to miss any games, because if we have to go to Jalen Hyatt, I don't know, man. That's
Yeah.
bad news.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that there's a world where if if one of these guys gets hurt, our starting wide receiver is going to be like Isaiah Hodgins off the 49ers practice squad.
I mean, he knows the route tree.
Mm-hmm.
He knows the general playbook. But he does not have any kind of rapport with a lot of the guys on the team now. Maybe, who was here when he was here? Slayton? I think he's probably the only one, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
At.
yeah. I mean, I don't know how much they value Isaiah Hodgins, but look, I wouldn't be shocked if they went and tried to grab him. If I'll tell you this, if I'm a receiver who's on the practice squad of another team, and the Giants say I'd like to sign you off that practice squad, to my team, and maybe or just leave that team and come to my practice squad or something like that, like I would consider it
Maybe,
because
but 49ers have a pretty bad receiving core right now.
yeah, I mean I think I suspect that Kendrick Bourne will be heading that way.
I agree.
Um,
Maybe that will change things. I don't know.
especially with Brandon Ayuk on pup. I think there's a good chance that a veteran like Bourne ends up there. So anyway, that's the wide receiver room. We talked a little bit about running backs, tight ends we discussed. There's not much else. Let's go to the trenches, man. What do you think about the O line?
Hope nobody gets hurt. No, is that I mean, to be fair, that's a story of this team. Like we've done a lot to make this team better, but that separates us from the top teams in the league. The top teams in the league have depth and are cutting players that people are claiming all over the league. Like that's what sets us apart. But no, I mean, I'll say Marcus Bowe made me feel better about the offensive line. Because my number one complaint, and still is probably my number one complaint of the offseason, was James Hudson. Is that was James
Yeah.
Hudson signed him for $6 million a year. I don't know what the fuck they were doing, but that guy stinks. He stunk in Cleveland. He stinks here. I do not trust him to touch a football field, and I would much prefer a Bo out there. I don't feel great about Bo being out there. I mean, he's a fifth round rookie. He showed a lot, but at the end of the day, like I don't feel good about first round offensive tackle rookies getting out there. So, but I feel much better with him than I did James Hudson. So that makes me feel a little better. But on the other side of it, I felt a lot better about this offensive line on the interior when there is an idea of Evan Neal potentially being a part of this, but
Yeah.
him not working out, who starts if Van Roten gets hurt, if John Michael Schmidt gets hurt, if John Runyon gets hurt, who moves inside? I assume Van Roten moves to center. If John Michael Smith gets hurt, maybe you start Austin Slotman, but probably not. And then who goes in? Is Evan Neal going in? Or are you putting in Aaron Stinney? Like I don't feel good about those right now.
So Josh Azudu, I think, is on pup. I mean, on
Right.
IR to start, right? And I would
Maybe
argue
he's
that
the
on
guy.
the, yeah, I mean, I think arguably, I don't think it's even arguable. I think Josh Azudu had the best camp of the reserve guards, of the reserve interior guys when he got his interior reps.
I heard the Giants got calls on Josh Azudu.
He looked good.
Mm-hmm.
He looked really, I mean, he looked solid. It's unfortunate. He's another one that gets hurt constantly, and it sucks. But at least he looked like he's finally taken some developmental steps, and at least in camp, he looked good. So hopefully he's not gone on IR for a while. Remind me what the rule is. Are they gone for the full 4 games, or can they get him out after 2 games now?
I'm not even sure.
Yeah. If anybody in the chat knows the rule with IR right before the season starts, is this a 4 game or this is a 2 game? Because I really don't remember. I thought there was some change where it could be 2 games, but
Yeah, I
I'm
feel
not sure
like
if
they're
that
always
applies before.
changing these rules, so I don't even know.
Right, right, and that's why I'm asking if anybody's familiar with it. But I think he is your most likely first off the bench backup guard.
I agree.
Um, I think the next one up is probably Stinney. Stinney is probably your next guy, and the question is who gets bounced from the team whenever Josh Azudu is back, because that's interesting. Because here's your backup interior guys right now. It's Evan Neal, Austin Schlottman, Aaron Stinney, those three,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have two backup tackles. We already mentioned Bo and Hudson. And then you've got your starters. So of those three, who gets bounced for Josh Azudu? Is it Schlottman?
Yeah, I mean it depends. I don't know how they're playing. Like, are they going to put Austin Slotman in if John Michael Smith gets hurt? If they would do that without shifting Van Roten, then Slotman probably gets a nod over Steny. But if they would just move Van Roten realistically, then they'd probably just get rid of Slotman.
I think that's probably the move, right? And I think what's his name? Jordan Raynon was saying that there are people in the building who just feel like the best center on the team is Greg Van Roten, which doesn't surprise me one bit. And I think that we mentioned this earlier that I don't think that John Michael Schmitz is going to have a very long leash here. I mean, he played well enough, I think, in camp and in preseason where they feel comfortable with him starting. But if he looks like a problem in actual games, that he's, really hurting the offense, I don't know how much of a leash they'll have for the guy. They may just be like, look, it's not working out. You're the backup now. Schlottman's gone. Greg Van Roten moves to center, and somebody else becomes a guard. And that's when it starts getting dicey, right? You're like, all right, well, let's just say Josh Azudu's healthy by the time you make this move, and Josh Azudu slides into right guard. Okay. I mean, that's pretty decent. Van Roten, Josh Azudu on the right side.
Mm-hmm.
Then what? Right now, your backups are Evan Neal, and John Michael Schmitz, who can't play guard, and Denny. You start getting into tricky territory at that point. Now you're really in trouble. So personally, the guy that made the practice squad that I liked a lot, that I wish would have made the team, but I think he can still make the team, is Brian Hudson from
Hmm.
Louisville. He was a center at Louisville. He's a good center, and he played well in camp. I don't know if you watched him, but he was solid, and they had him playing guard and center. So he's playing with the versatility and has that little bit of a mean streak on the interior that I like, and I think he could be a serviceable interior guy. I'd like to see him get to the active roster and dump one of these guys. What I'm getting at is, and I know this won't happen anytime soon, I don't see a world in which Evan Neal is even useful for this roster.
Yeah,
I'm kind of there.
yeah, I mean, from what I heard is they did shop him around and they didn't really have any takers. If you could trade him, I would. I'd get value while you can, but at this point, I mean, he's just learned the guard position. You keep developing and hope something clicks, but I just don't expect it.
Developing him for what? He's off this team in a year.
I mean, maybe click week 8 and you feel like you have something. I mean, it's better than nothing.
I think I would say at this point, the odds that Evan Neal gives you anything of value on his rookie contract is just about zero.
I
We're right there, right?
mhm. But I mean, this is why I advocated so hard to move him last off season, is you didn't
I was too.
really get time to develop him as a guard, and it's as much as I don't necessarily think it. I have a feeling at this point it's not going to work regardless, and maybe it's not the end of the world. It also is feels pretty unfair that we're expecting him to be a starting level guard off of like 6 months of training there.
I'm not concerned with fair. It's unfair that we took him at seventh overall and he's been so dog shit for all these years that he can't even freaking play. That's not a problem for the Giants. This is a personal career issue for him. My concern as a fan of the team is what value does this guy bring to the roster? And I was rooting hard for him, just like you, to win a guard spot. I thought he could have been a
Mhm.
difference maker as a run blocker, and I think he can be. I mean, at times, but he's so freaking lost in pass protection. He has guys run by him all the time. You saw the pressures on, that Jaxson Dart face when he was in. I mean, they're just dudes. These are second teamers that are just destroying him
Mhm.
with pass rush moves on the interior. Like this is not playable,
Yeah.
against starters. It just isn't. Well, I'm not sure what's going to change because the reason he fails is the same reason he failed at the tackle. He's just slow.
Mhm.
I
He's
don't think
never
that's going to
healthy
magically.
either.
Yeah, I mean, when is that going to get better, right? So I think he's
Mhm.
not playable. I'll be honest. I would have cut him if nobody took it. I know people are going to be like, well, it doesn't make any financial sense. You're going to eat $8 million. I get it, and I realize that's why they're not. If they could have traded him, they would have saved a lot of money, like a few million bucks. But by not trading him, they're stuck with him, and if they cut him, they lose the whole 7.8 million or whatever it is. It doesn't come back to them. But right now, he's just eating a valuable roster spot, and I think that's the greater risk to the team. The money's a goner, but the roster spot is still salvageable, and I'm generally actually concerned right now that his sitting on the roster is just eating up space, and it's not doing anything. So I don't know what's going to play out. But again, you got to hope nobody gets hurt because they don't have a good plan while Josh Azudu is actually on the mend. And it looks like it is 4 weeks that he'd be out. My guess is if anybody gets hurt on the interior or there's any move on the interior, Stinny's the first man up. I think that's what we're going to see.
Mhm.
And, it is what it is.
I mean, to me, I'm not over worried about the spot because I don't think there is a marginal difference between Evan Neal and the backups that you're gonna fill that spot with at offensive line.
There were guys out there. So Cole Strange, I think are you muted or
I don't think
no?
so.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Cole Strange is out there. I don't love Cole Strange, but, he was a former first round pick. There's
Mhm.
something there.
Shouldn't have been, but
And then of course, Willie Lampkin, you know,
yeah.
Willie Lampkin was cut by the Rams. And for those who don't know, he was the what is he 5'10", 5'10" center from North Carolina who was just dominating at the Senior Bowl. Like, he was just
and
dominating. He's good,
and he had the best PFF grade of all offensive linemen this preseason.
right? He was outstanding, and he just didn't make the cut. And the Rams trying to sneak him on their practice squad, and it was the freaking Eagles who signed him, which
Yeah, well,
means he went
he
past
got
every
hurt.
team. Right? He got hurt, and that means he went through all 31 other teams on waivers and got to the freaking Eagles, and they put in a claim and took him. Just think how
Yep.
frustrating that is, right? And it's like, what, we couldn't have used a guy who can play guard and center, like, it's just,
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
mean, I don't know the new the new IR rules and how this works, but I mean, I thought we were talking about this yesterday. I said like I wish we were in charge of this because I don't give a fuck about like the right way to do things. Like I will add Willie Lampkin to my 53 man roster. I will make him one of my game day inactives for a couple weeks while he gets healthy. And I will do it just to add him because he's a good player for this team. The Eagles don't give a fuck about necessarily doing things the right way either, which, the Patriots were that way for a long time. Like I remember they did that something similar when they stole like Jake Ballard from us. Like it was, the Giants were like crying about how you're not supposed to do that or whatever. I don't know if it's exactly the same thing, but I kind of just expected them to them do like an injury reserve type thing, and the Eagles were like, nope, we'll take them.
Okay, but along those lines, Dan Duggan reported that Rico Payton, the cornerback that we took from the Saints, we're going to put him on IR. Did you hear that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Duggan's like, we're likely to put him on IR.
I didn't even know you were
They
allowed to
just
do that.
they just like him.
Mhm.
That's it. It's just a guy Joe Shane liked from a year ago, and that's fine. That's cool. Like, you like him, but he's basically just a special teamer on IR, eating a roster spot, like eating one of your waiver claims, and like why didn't you make more claims then, right? You're
Yeah.
deciding to use an IR spot on this guy. It sounds like that's what Duggan was saying. I got to pull up the tweet. Um, you could have made more claims, right? If he's not eating an immediate 53 man roster like spot. I don't know. I'm a little concerned there. Like, I don't think they took the depth there too seriously. And once again, they're banking on guys that they already have, and maybe it'll work. I mean, to Carmen Brasillo's credit, he's had everybody looking better. It's again, it's kind of like the wide receiver room. Like, there is some quality there, but there's not a lot of depth behind it. And you just, you're hoping certain guys don't get injured.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not really worried about the interior O line derailing this season. It comes down to if AT gets hurt and if Marcus Bowe can fill that spot. That's what I'm most worried about. And I know, hey, another guy worth calling out, a guy who I advocated for us to get over James Hudson is Trent Brown got cut. So I
Yep.
don't know. He's out there.
But he was hurt also, I believe.
Yeah, he's always hurt.
Yeah.
um,
All right. So you want to go to the defensive side of the ball?
sure.
All right, let's stick to the trenches. D line: Darius Alexander, DJ Davidson, Chauncey Golston, who they interestingly put there. And
Hmm.
the D line, I kind of agree with that, by the way.
Yeah.
Dexter Lawrence, obviously, Nacho, and Roy Robertson Harris. Six guys. I wasn't shocked by any of this. What are your thoughts?
No, I wasn't shocked about any of it either. Like I thought, I thought that there was a chance that Elijah Chapman would make it over DJ Davidson, but DJ Davidson had a good camp, and once you cut once you cut Elijah Chapman, I think it was a pretty much a guarantee that DJ Davidson was making the roster.
Yeah, no, I think DJ Davidson did earn the spot, to be fair. He
Hmm.
played well enough to earn the spot. You know who didn't play well enough to earn the spot?
Cool.
Rakeem Nunez Roches.
Yeah.
He did not play well enough to earn the spot. And this is another one, which is kind of a little bit of a head scratcher, right? I forget his number. He's at like 3 million or something. Um, you kind of need the cap space a little bit here, and he played terribly. He was outplayed by just about everybody else on this list, um, and he was probably outplayed by guys like Elijah Chapman. So what are we doing here, right? Is it just
Yeah.
because we just need to have a fat guy, and he's a fat guy, but he's not a good fat guy. There are other fat guys out there. Let me give you a name that was out there, a guy that we had a top 30 visit with a couple of years ago. Broderick Martin from Western Kentucky. Remember him?
Hmm.
really good run defender in college at Western Kentucky, was drafted, I think, in the fourth round by the Lions and was kind of again another numbers game. Didn't really get a lot of snaps. Maybe he didn't earn them, but a big dude. I think he's like 6'4", 350. He was a big guy. Plugging up the interior. At minimum, he could be a backup to Dex, but a nice run stuffer. Um, I would have preferred taking a shot on him. I think he ended up going back to their practice squad. I'd have to check that. But I mean, I wasn't surprised, but I think we could still use a run stuffer. What about you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I wasn't surprised, but yeah, the one thing that I think is interesting, and nothing surprised me that much on an individual basis with the salary cap of these guys, but it does surprise me. It doesn't feel like we really made any salary cap moves between Bellinger, between Nacho, between Gano. Like there is these guys we could have moved on from. Gano, I'm glad we didn't. He looks healthy and he looks good, but um, we didn't make any of those moves, and that surprised me. I mean, could have saved 3.5 million by cutting Nacho.
Yeah, no, I agree. Oh, and Broderick Barton went to the Chiefs practice squad. Interesting. Yeah, and David Gooden wrote, maybe they don't like the guy you guys do. That's true. I mean, they like who they like, right? And that's fine. And I think at the end of the day, they have to trust their evaluation. I just feel like there are certain obvious deficiencies on the team, and it would be nice if there was some evidence that some of the guys they kept could actually address those deficiencies. And I'm pointing directly at guys at like Nacho and Jalen Hyatt.
Mhm.
I think those are guys who sit in important roster spots and who have consistently proven to not be the solution there. And I would have felt more comfortable if they just moved off those guys and brought other people, but they feel comfortable with them. So you just at this point, you just got to hope that they get better. I don't know what else there is to say. Roy Robertson Harris had a good. I thought he had a very good preseason. He was good in the
Yep.
games. He's one of these guys who's like a veteran who I think probably doesn't give it his all in practice, but he shows up when it counts. So I'm pretty comfortable with him next to Dexter Lawrence and Chauncey Golston's the same way. By the way, people are freaking out about Chauncey Golston and like, oh, he doesn't look good. I mean, have you watched him play in Dallas? Like, do you think the guy forgot how to play football? No, he's a good player. I'm not
Yeah,
worried about him too much.
I agree.
Davidson earned it. Alexander's a guy I know that everybody's worried about, and look, he's a rookie. He's got to get better. That's on him, but I'm not freaking out about a rookie not looking quite up to snuff this fast.
Yeah, I wish he looked better right now. Don't get me wrong. He's a guy who I really thought could be a difference maker from day one. It doesn't appear he'll be that, but it doesn't mean that I've given up on him.
No, but it also shouldn't be it shouldn't be the kind of thing that breaks you, right?
Yeah.
Like a third round rookie, he should be good. He should be maybe a little bit better, but you should have a solution outside of Darius Alexander. That's not that hard to get. So again, that's another spot that I hope they actually think about getting somebody in here. And I think the guy that I would personally hope they would replace would be Nick, Nacho for somebody else and add them to the room. But we'll see what they do. My suspicion is they're not doing anything in D line. I think they're just going to
Mhm.
stand pat at this point. Um, Inside linebackers. Um, Chris Ford, Demetrius Flanagan Fowles. That was an interesting one. Micah McFadden, Darius Muasau, and Bobby Okereke. Your thoughts?
Who are the two that got cut today? Was Demetrius Flanagan Fowles one of them, or is it somebody else?
No, it was Gunnar Olszewski and Corey Black.
Right. So yeah, Demetrius Flanagan Fowles surprised me. I thought he was going to be one of the first cut guys. Yeah, that one surprised me. I don't think we need to have 5 inside linebackers, and I feel good about Bobby Okereke, Micah McFadden, Chris Board as like are usable guys who are really going to be in the field, and then you have Darius Musa as more of a special teamer guy and a guy who can, give you a bodied inside linebacker. I don't think you need Demetrius Flanagan Fowles on top of that.
So here's my issue with this room. 3 of the 5 guys are here simply because they play special teams. 3 out of 5 inside linebackers. So Demetrius Flanagan Fowles is a special teamer for the most part.
Eh,
They
Chris
view him
Board's a
that
good
way.
player.
Chris Ford's a good player.
He's
Out
not
of the
here
3 of
just for
them,
the special teams.
but he's mainly here for the special teams. Like that's his calling card. I mean,
He's a
he's a
great
good.
special teamer, but he's a really good football player too.
Okay, I'll give you Chris Ford. Darius Muasau is a special teamer. All right, for the most part, he plays.
Yeah.
He's a backup. He's an acceptable backup linebacker, but
He
he's just basically a
he
special
does
team.
he doesn't get drafted if he's not a special teamer.
Correct. He doesn't get drafted unless he's a special teamer where his former head coach is now the his former special teams coach is now the special teams coach of the team that drafted him. Let's be
Yeah.
real, right?
Mhm.
That's how he got here. Nothing wrong with him. Perfectly reasonable player, but again, a little superfluous when you have board. And then Flanagan Fowler, same thing. I mean, I think they gave him something like 500,000 guaranteed bet money, which plays into this decision. To keep him on the roster. I don't think he's actually going anywhere, but he's mostly a special teamer for our purposes here. So, do you need five of them? I mean, I don't know. If you need a roster spot elsewhere, I think this is a place where you can get rid of one of these guys.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I would, again, I'm looking at Demetrius Funning and Valves if we need to open up a spot.
Edge room. It's got three. It's got three names on it.
Yeah.
Not much to say here. Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau.
Yeah, I think you should have cut Brian Burns.
We need a,
No,
we need another wide receiver.
no. The one thing I'll say, injury, obviously that's a worry, but I will say I do think Chauncey Golston is a little bit of a crossover here between
Correct.
D line and outside linebacker.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they're using him that way, just like they're using Abdul Carter as a crossover between edge and inside linebacker. So I
Hmm.
think they're seeing some overlap here, which is another reason why you could get rid of one of these other inside linebackers because you have Abdul
Hmm.
Carter. You know,
Sure, that's a good
so
point.
in any, but yes, you're right. I agree. I would have loved to have kept Trace Ford. I thought the kid had a really good camp. I think you can never have enough guys like him. I don't give a shit if he has an elite pass rush plan, which I heard people talk about. I don't care. If you're fast and strong and you're bullying linemen, and you're causing havoc by just being a menace, that's all you want from your backup edge guys, right? You want a guy who's going to bring a motor and a burst.
I thought he should have made the. I mean, I should have, but the guy I would have put on my 53 man. But I'm happy he made the practice squad, and I think he is a guy who will be called up to play on the roster at some point this year.
I agree. He'll get a game. I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure of that. Like I'd be surprised if he didn't get a shot.
Yeah, I mean, look, what's the I'm not wishing injuries on anybody, but
It
what's
happens.
the realistic that we don't have a tweaked ankle from anybody or something like that?
It could be to Chauncey Golston,
Hmm.
right? And you don't have a backup. That's my point. Like it could be to anybody. So I think he's probably the first man up in the edge room. So hopefully he'll get a shot to play if the duty, if the situation arises, and I think he'll do a good job. I liked him a lot. I'm glad we kept him. That's all I can say.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm glad he's there. So
yeah, no, I agree. So we've done edge, inside linebacker, defensive line, safety. We talked a little bit about Bo Braid. I think he's a good compliment, but the only other ones they've kept so far are Dane Belton, Javon Holland, and Tyler Newman. Is our safety room done with Bo Braid? And what do you think of that room?
I felt they needed to add another safety. I think Bo Braid is a good compliment to have there with a Dane Belton, who's more of a ball hawk, not much of a tackler. I think Bo Braid is a little bit more of a thumper, and he's gonna be a good special teamer. I think he's a good fit to have there. Obviously, the main show there is Javon Holland and Tyler Newbin. And you can maybe put Bo Braid in the box as like a third safety once in a while. You put Dane Belton up high or something once in a while, things like that. Um, but really, those guys are there for depth, and I think having four safeties is a smart idea.
Yeah, I think four safeties is the exact amount that you need for this defense. This defense has a lot of three safety sets, a lot. And I think you're going to have a lot of plays you're going to see, especially on third and long, where you're going to have potentially, Holland, Belton, and Newman all on the field at the same time, or some
Hmm.
variation of three guys on the field at the same time. So having that is I think important. Having a guy like Bo Braid out there as a run stopper and thumper is important. It's just a really good room actually. When you look around the NFL, believe it or not, I mean I don't think there's a ton of safety rooms that are better than that. Like it's got to be it's got to be in the top half of the league at least. I would think
Yeah,
this safety room is really solid,
for
and
sure.
I
I love our top two guys.
yeah, and I like the backup guys. Like I think Belton
Hmm.
as a specialist who's coming in nickel and dime packages to basically be a ball hawk, and Bo Braid being around to rotate and to be a thumper. Like that's a perfect complement of players. It's
I agree.
really a well constructed room.
I agree. It's a good room. And shout out to Giants Goofballs. It's something I've been keeping an eye on. We are only 77 subscribers from 1,000. That's been a goal of ours for a while. So if anybody watching isn't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button.
So thank you to the people who did subscribe, because I believe we started with, a little under like 920 or something. So we've had a few subscribers add today. So please add, and thank you guys for mentioning it. But we appreciate it. Getting to 1,000, I guess, is, it's a metric. It would be
Yeah.
nice. All right. Cornerbacks. Paulson Adebo, Deontay Banks, Corey Black, who just got cut, Cordell Flott, Art Green, Nick Jones, Drew Phillips. So seven initially, and then they got the Corey Black got Flott. I believe he's the one who got cut when they added the two players. What are your thoughts here? And of course, they just signed the other guy, um, Rico, from the Saints, but I think he's on IR now. He's going to IR. So let's just deal with these guys here. What do you think?
Um, I'll say start Corey Black surprised me, but didn't surprise me. But he ultimately did end up making the team. That's he kind of is the first draft pick to not make the 53-man roster, but he did. I don't know, but he'll be end up in the practice squad, I'm sure. I don't know if he already is. And then
I feel like, by the way, that Joe Shane did that just so he could say
yeah,
all
well,
my draft picks have
I
always made my 53-man
I
roster.
always keep my draft picks. Yeah, he might have.
I was looking at it with like one eyebrow raised when the 53 came out. I'm like, Corey Black, huh? Okay.
Yeah. Um Art Green didn't surprise me. He had a good preseason, and he is one of our core special teamers. He's one of our gunners. Nick Jones was a guy who's competing for our gunner spot. Um he got it, and I'm happy for Nick Jones. I think Nick Jones had a really good training camp. He flashed early. He was the one that had the pick on Dart, right?
Yep.
Was-
He had the
He
pick on Dart like the first day of camp.
yeah. And he's
I think Dart's first throw, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, it was. And he didn't keep it up the whole camp. He wasn't like Trey Hawkins of a couple years ago, but he had a good camp. He made some plays in the preseason games, and I think most importantly, he was one of the highest graded special teamer in all of
Yeah.
preseason this year. And that's how he made the team, and I think he earned it. And it's nice to see a guy show a strength on defense, show strength special teams. With that said, I wish we had a corner I felt a little bit better about being on the field. After the first four I feel okay about. With Adebo, Phillips, Flott, and Banks, but after that, I don't feel good about Art Green. I don't feel good about Nick Jones. I don't feel good about Rico, about being like on the field playing. Really like the idea of adding BB Bishop, a guy who I advocated for the draft, and then had a stellar rookie year. I have no idea why the Steelers cut him, but that worries me a little bit. I wish I understand. I'm a special teams important. It's something I always bring up with these final 53 guys. It's an important part of it, but I wish there was a guy who had I could trust a little bit more on the field. But I don't know. I don't know enough about these guys as players to say they can't play. I just don't feel good about it.
Yeah. I wonder how many teams have cornerback depth behind CB4 that they feel comfortable about.
That's fair. It's just it's
I
unknowns is the thing, but I hear you.
I will make this claim though, or the case for what they're doing here. This defense is predicated on zone coverage for the most part, and it's rules based, right? And these DBs have to know the rules, and they have to know their assignments, when to hand off, what to do. And I don't know if you can judge the quality of the room just by looking at the performance of individuals historically here. I
Mm-hmm.
think the coaching staff has to be extremely comfortable with these guys to say they can run this defense, they know their assignments, they know the rules, right? And that's just stuff we don't get as fans. We don't understand that, and it's hard to see that. But this is one of those things where I think it's the product in games is probably going to be better than what you assume will be the product just looking at the names on paper. If these guys
Mhm.
know their assignment, this is not the Wink Martindale defense where it was pretty easy to identify who was going to be good and not good in Wink's defense, right? In the DB room, everybody played press man. Everybody played at least some form of man. If a guy couldn't cover because he wasn't fast enough and he wasn't slick enough and he didn't have oily hips, he was going to be a problem and you knew it, right? And the guys who can run with everybody were fine. It's not like that in this defense. So I feel like we kind of have to see how it plays out. Like, for example, Cordell Flott was probably not the best cover man corner, right? In Wink Martindale's
Mhm.
defense. I mean, he's not physical enough. Obviously, he was very young then, but he looks pretty damn good in his own defense. He
Yeah.
looks like he knows his assignments. He's comfortable with the spacing. He knows when to click and close and make a play on the ball. He looks like this is his kind of defense. So I just want to, I think they like these guys. The coaching staff has done well. You can argue that the new secondary coaches have done as good a job as anybody this camp, right? These guys look good out there. So I'm actually going to trust them on this.
Yeah, and DK mentioned Hawkins. Hawkins back on the practice, so which I like. I like Trey Hawkins. I like him enough to keep him on the practice squad. I wouldn't have been mad if he made the team, but I'm glad he's back in the practice squad. He's a guy.
Yep, he is.
He's a guy.
Um,
I'll say he doesn't have the special teams. I'd feel better about Hawkins playing than some of our last guys. He at least has some experience out there.
Question is, how does he play in this zone system, right? I don't know. I have no idea,
Mm-hmm.
but whatever. I mean, he's out there. And as with secondaries, there tends to be movement on this during the season, right? Like, I feel like every year we're going through two new guys in the secondary midway through the season. It happens like all the time. Guys get called up from the practice squad, injuries, whatever it may be, right? So um, we'll see. I mean, I'm not as worried about the secondary as I thought I would be. I'll be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Watching Cordell Flott compete and do a good job, I think Paulson Debo's going to be good in this system. Obviously, I mean, we haven't talked about it much, but Andrew Phillips looked really good. Like he looks like he took a developmental leap as a player in the summer. Um, I just and I mean, we haven't mentioned Deontay Banks. Um, Big question marks there, right, with him,
Unfortunately.
he he's got he's got pressure on him. He may not be the starter. We don't know yet, but if I had to guess, I think Cordell Flott is starting. At this point,
Do you think Flock gets the job?
I think Cordell Flott clearly outplayed him.
But do you think he gets it?
I do.
I do too. I do too. But that's a big question right now. A lot of people are asking that. I think a lot of I've been listening to a lot of content creators. A lot of content creators think he's going that they're going to give Banks a nod, even though everybody kind of agrees that Flott should get the job. We'll see. They're talking a lot about accountability. To me, that says Flott earned it. I mean, similar like first year came in here. David Sills got the start over Kadarius Toney and Kenny Galladay because he was out playing them in camp, and they're like, well, best guy wins. And if they're going to stick to that concept, I know Galladay and Toney weren't their guys, but at some point you got to you got to stick to that even when it's your guy.
I mean, he just looks like a better fit in the system.
Yep.
Um, that said, I don't think Deontay Banks was completely unsalvageable in the summer. I don't think like he's
Mm-hmm.
still a very sticky corner. He has the issue where he just doesn't have the instincts to turn around and make a play on the
So
ball.
it's so frustrating.
Right. So the question is like, how do you utilize him, and will he be more comfortable in a rules based system? Because the thing about it is in camp and in preseason, they play a lot of just straight up man. I don't know if you notice this. Like there's a ton of just straight up man. But in
Mm-hmm.
in like the actual games, you're not going to see a ton of that with Bowen's defense. You'll see some, but I think you're going to see a lot of just, handoff and rules based defense, So I wonder if that plays a role in how they decide who plays. But I still think Flott is the better fit. I think he deserves to start, and I think he will. Um, Let me see. Are we missing anything? No, I think we covered all of these players. So let's circle back. What are your, where are you looking? Are you looking for vested veterans? What are you thinking about right now?
I had a question for you based on something we've already talked about. We've talked about this personally, and we went over this a little bit. You brought up Jacoby Myers. We disagree a little bit here. Make your case for why why you think the Giants should go trade for Jacoby Myers.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is a good discussion because I've been fighting with people about this on the timeline and spaces and in chats. So let me actually give me 2 seconds and I'll pull up his data because I like to have it for the sake of the discussion. And I know it's good because I've obviously looked at it. Um, but for those who don't know, Jacoby Myers is currently on the Raiders. He's 28-year-old receiver. He used to be on the Patriots. Um, and he is a really solid receiver. I think he's about 6'2", 6'2", 200. Um, and he's in a contract dispute. That's the issue. He's in the last year of his contract with the Raiders, and he wants a big deal. And a lot of this is probably stemming from the fact that Terry McLaurin just got 30 million a year. And
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that the Raiders in his contract year are giving a lot of snaps to rookies Jack Beck and Daquan Thornton, who they really like. So a guy who was highly productive for the Raiders last year. Last year he had 126 targets, 87 catches, 1,027 yards, 11.8 yards per reception, and 4 touchdowns. He's probably going to see his target share go down quite a bit this year with the rookies that they're going to go with and the new offense. And so in a contract year with, staring down the barrel of less production in that offense with rookies that are probably going to steal a lot of his reps, he asked for a lot of money and they're not going to give it to him, so he wants out. That's the background. Okay. But he's a good receiver. So historically, Jacoby Myers is a very reliable player. He plays almost every game. Um, he has been a target machine really his entire career. So going back to 2021, his third year, this was back in New England. 130 targets, 89 receptions, 906 yards, 10.2 yards per reception, which is not great, but 2 touchdowns. His yards per route run was 1.58. And by the way, in the NFL, these yards per route runs are always substantially lower than college, so don't be freaked out by these numbers. In 2022, 67 receptions on 93 targets, 804 yards, 6 touchdowns. His yards per route run were 1.90. In 2023, he was with Las Vegas, 71 receptions and 106 targets, 807 yards, 8 touchdowns, 1.52 yards per route run. And then in 2024, 87 and 126 for 1,027 to 4 touchdowns and 1.76 yards per route run. He doesn't drop anything. He has last year he had 0 drops,
There you go.
15 drops total in a 6-year NFL career. Not bad. His drop rate is 3.6% throughout his career. Obviously, it was 0 last year. And his career contested catch percentage. Remember this, Monty? Anything above 50 is really good.
Mm-hmm.
He's a career 62.8% contested catch guy.
Yeah, really good.
I mean, the data loves him, right?
Mm-hmm.
For like maybe loves a strong word. The data really likes him.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, and when you watch him on film, he lines up in the slot about 50% of the time historically, and he's an outside guy about 50% of the time historically. This varies year by year, but he has the versatility to play both. And as I mentioned before, he's a very solid route runner. He's always where he needs to be. He's a good target, makes himself available, presents a big target for his quarterbacks. The ball comes his way, he catches it. So he's very productive and reliable. I think he's immediately wide receiver 2 on the Giants if we get him, slightly ahead of Darius Slayton. I'm not saying he's infinitely better than Darius Slayton. That's not the argument I'm making, but I think he's slightly better than Darius Slayton because I think Slayton will be better this year with better quarterback play. Um, but I think having both him and Slayton with Malik Neighbors is an infinitely better room than having Neighbors, Slayton, and Wandale with Jalen Hyatt backing them up. So that's my case. Now, the other case for him, he's not going to cost a ton in draft capital. I think we both agree, right? Fourth or a
Mm-hmm.
fifth round pick, most likely,
Mm-hmm.
to get him. He wants a contract, which is the negative part of this, right? So, like, he probably wants 20 something million a year, right? 25 million a year, something like that.
Yep.
And I think that's probably where guys like him are going to land in the 20 to 25 million a year range for a couple of years. I would explore it because, one, I don't think it's a huge deal to pay a guy like him with the cap going up. I think he's a solid receiver. But even if you didn't want to, on the Giants, he's going to get a lot of targets. He's going to get the opportunity to get to play more. And he's a guy that's going to get a contract after this year. So even if you give up a fourth or a fifth to get him, if he's willing to come here without a new contract, he's going to sign somewhere else. and he will count for your comp formula, which does matter, right? Even if we become buyers and we negate it, it still helps the formula. So that's my case for him. He's a good player. He's reliable. He helps our depth. He helps our starters. The cost is not egregious. He's the right age, the right prototype. And I think some of the concerns about the financial parts of this are hedged in the comp formula issue. So that's my case for. Now
So
you
yeah,
give the case against.
yes, because we talked about this a little bit. So I agree with you on everything that you're saying as far as Jacoby Myers, the player. I agree. Jacoby Myers is a very good football player. I'm not somebody sitting here saying that he's not a good football player. And I think where you put him is basically exactly where I see him. He's a little bit better than Darius Slayton. There are different types of receivers. Like Darius Slayton has been a wide receiver one on his team, and he never got 140 targets. And that's because that's not the type of wide receiver he is. He's never going to get that type of target share because he's not the 3-level player that Jacoby Myers is. He can play 3 levels better than most field stretchers. Like, I'm not trying to shit on Darius Slayton when I say that, but he's not a 3-level player in the sense of what Jacoby Myers is. And Jacoby Myers, I do think would help out this team. All that I agree with. We traded our third round pick already next year in the Jaxson Dart trade. I don't like the idea of trading a fourth, probably a fourth, or even a fifth, though. Probably if you're doing a fifth, it's probably like a fifth and a sixth or something like that, fifth and a seventh, what have you. I I would rather hold on to my draft picks and continue to build through the draft. Um, I understand there's the comp formula thing, and again, we talked about this a little bit too. I just don't know if the Giants are playing the comp formula game at this point. You might get lucky where you make your big move and it's a guy who got cut or a trade like we did with Brian Burns. But if not, then you're not, and then that doesn't matter, and you don't have the pick. You don't have the pick next year, even if you win the comp formula game, which I don't like. In next year, we don't have the third already. And then I think lastly, kind of where I'm at with it is I don't want to extend Jacoby Myers. Personally, where this team is, I don't want to extend him. He's turning 29 this season. In this next year season, he's going to be turning 30. That's getting on the older end of wide receivers. I do think he's going to get paid like 25 million a year, 2025. I agree with you there. And to me, I would rather spend that money and go after in next offseason, whether it's through a trade or it's through free agency, whatever. I'd rather target a guy who I feel like could be a high end to a low end one. I do think Jacoby Myers is just off of that. I think he's a middle to low end too, but I want to be looking for, you know, the the Jalen Waddle type to the Chris Olave type. Those are the
Sure.
those are the
If
type I would like to
if
add.
they're available.
Sure, but if you get Jacoby Myers and they become available, you're not going after him at that point. That's over. Like
I
you're
mean,
out of the wide receiver market if you
I mean,
extend Jacoby Myers.
that's where the intelligence gathering of your executive front office matters, right? They need to have their finger on the pulse of what's likely going to happen. If there really is an opportunity to potentially say, like, if like there's something brewing in New Orleans and they're going to move Olave and you're willing to take the risk on his health stuff, I agree. If you know that there's a chance that Waddle might get moved, I think you and I both agree those are probably the two most likely guys to get moved, who are those high end wide receiver two, really wide receiver one guys, right? I mean, they're really wide receiver
Mhm.
ones. Um, I think they're the most likely, and if there's a chance you can get them, I think it's worth waiting. But just I don't know if they're going to be available, and it's okay to wait. But you asked me to make a case for Myers. I don't think it's as a I don't think it's an open and shut thing because I'm not necessarily committing the money. Like my approach to Myers is this: I'm willing to give up the pick and take and play the comp formula game. I really am, without committing the money to him. Long term, I'm okay with that for 1 year to improve the quality of this year's team. Because I don't think that we should be so flippant about not adding talent and not trying to win football games. right? I can't wait. We can't wait for next year's draft all the time. Sometimes you just have to improve the football team. And I feel like it's worth considering that, but I completely understand and don't even completely disagree with the point you're making. And a lot of people are making that there's some risk here that may not be worth it. I get that. But I do think in some way, shape, or form, this wide receiver room has to improve. And he's just a guy that's out there that I think fits the bill as a player.
Yeah. I mean, look, if we didn't have Darius Slayton, if we let him go this offseason, I think we'd be having a different discussion right now if we're sitting here with Neighbors and Wandale. But I think where we are is I feel pretty good. And I understand yeah, like there's always more we can do to improve this team, but I think we did a lot, and Rome isn't necessarily built in a day, and I do think adding a high end wide receiver to this room is kind of a luxury right now. I do think I completely agree we need to add depth to this room. I 100% agree. I don't necessarily think that is this huge thing that we need to go out and get a guy. If Darius Slayton or Neighbors gets hurt, maybe you go out and just try to get something done. I get that, but I don't think you need to be that proactive right now with the wide receiver position.
I think that's a fair argument. It's one I can accept. But then you have to then pivot to the next step, which is we need to add better depth to the wide receiver room from wide receiver three downward, right? I think that's
Mhm.
where we need to be looking. And it's not going to cost as much to get those types of guys. A lot of those guys are cut, right? Like they're out there
Yeah.
and you can pick them off people's practice squads, to be totally honest, like threes and fours. Um, I'm not letting Wandale Robinson hold me back from
No.
improving this room. And I know that there's a big sentiment like I want to see Wandale with a better quarterback. I want to see Wandale Robinson is a guy I liked a lot coming out of college, more than Monty did, certainly.
Mhm.
But I understood but I liked him for what he was, which is a gadget, right? I liked him as a guy who I think they took him way too soon. You don't take gadgets with historically bad, testing numbers and historically, outlier tiny arms and tiny hands. I mean, those are just you don't do that in the top 50 pick. That's just bad form.
Yeah.
And Joe Shane really shot the bed with that pick. Let's be really honest.
It's funny is I remember saying this in real time, and it's funny how well this take aged. Is I essentially said why like why did Wandale Robinson go 3 rounds earlier than Calvin Austin? And I'd argue Calvin Austin is the better player than Wandale Robinson at this point.
Why did Wandell Robinson go 3 rounds earlier than even a better player comp, Khalil Shakir?
Yeah.
Khalil Shakir came out in the same draft. He was also, what is Khalil Shakir like? He's 6 feet tall, right? And he's like maybe a little under 6 feet tall, but he's 190. Went to the Bills. Was a similar type player at Boise State, right? A very like a
Mhm.
slot receiver, a guy who won with just route running and just toughness, kind of like Wandale. Why'd he go 3 rounds ahead of him? Now, granted, Khalil Shakir has Josh Allen that helps your production. Khalil Shakir just signed for 15 million a year, right? And
Yeah.
he's produced. He's produced at the NFL. And so it didn't make sense to me to do that. Anyway, that's,
Yeah.
years ago, but
The
I'm
only
not
reason
trying to,
I Yeah, the only
yeah,
reason I said Calvin Austin is because he's under
5'8".
5'8". Like he's like
Right,
right that the historically small, longer arms than Wandale though.
right. No, I agree. And I think here's the bottom line. You're a year four player. I'm not trying to solve the riddle of the Wandell. Like I don't need to
Mhm.
solve that. It's not the Sphinx, right? You're either going to produce or not. And maybe he'll produce. Maybe he'll do really well with Russ. I think there's a good chance he does, but you saw even in preseason, dude, like his lack of arm length and wingspan is a problem, even for really good quarterbacks with good ball placement. Like it's hard to get him the ball where he needs to get it because his arms are tiny. It has to be perfect. The quarterback has to be perfect to maximize Wandell. I'm not sitting and waiting for the Wandell development shit to happen and letting a better player potentially pass me by, right? If I get a player that I rather use in the slot over Wandell or some other better outside receiver that pushes Malik more to the slot and limits Wandell's usage, I'm not doing that because of Wandell Robinson. He's
Yes.
just he's just flat out not good enough to not improve the team, and I think that's where I draw the line. I think you can. you can make the argument that we shouldn't be trying to usurp Darius Slayton only because the cost would be prohibitive, right? To get
Mhm.
because Jacoby Myers is sort of like that's the threshold to usurp Darius Slayton, and it's
Yeah.
expensive, right? We're talking about the money and all that stuff. I get that. Anything below that level though is not expensive, and you should not be afraid to get somebody better than Wandale Robinson. That doesn't mean he's not going to be a useful part of the team, but I think he'll be a more useful gadget,
Yeah.
which is what he should be.
Or at least somebody who he doesn't have to be better than Wandale Robinson. He just has to bring something that Wandale Robinson doesn't. That in certain situations, he's somebody you'd rather on the field than Wandale Robinson.
And that's better than Wandale Robinson.
Yeah.
By definition, right? So, I mean, again, Wando's a good player. It's not a knock on him. I just think he's very limited, and
Mhm.
I would like to see some improvements at that level. What's it going to cost us, let's say, to find a guy like that? I mean, I honestly believe some of the guys we mentioned earlier are already guys I would consider taking and playing over Wando. Seriously, like even some of the rookie guys, right? I mean, they offer a little bit more, and I would at least bring them in the room to potentially compete for a spot. You know, does little Jordan Humphreys, does he offer more to this team than Wandale Robinson? I'm being very honest. Does he offer more to this team? If you said our starting trio is Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, and Lil Jordan Humphreys, can you see that being a more productive trio than Neighbors, Slayton, and Wandale?
I think I'd rather Wandale out there.
How close is it?
I mean, I think that there's situations I would rather Lil Jordan Humphreys out there, but I think that Wandale's a much better player than Lil Jordan Humphreys
No,
is. He just yeah.
I agree, but you're thinking about it,
I think
and
there's situations I could find that I would prefer Little Jordan Humphreys out there.
well, we cut him.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at.
Mhm.
Right? Like we cut that guy. That's the bar, and so like get a little bit better than that, and now you're talking about well, they're just they're slot receivers I'd rather have that are just that offer more than him. You know,
Mhm.
are there outside receivers that offer more to this team than him? And it's again, I'm not trying to take a shit on Wandale. I'm just saying like it affects the overall wide receiver room to try to get a little bit more and make him more of a depth guy than a guy you have to rely on every down. And if you're going to rely on him, he's got to produce this year, right? I think this year, Wandale Robinson, like if you're going to rely on him to be your like high target wide receiver three, he can't have 6 yards per reception,
Yeah. I mean,
right? Yeah,
I do think a big part of that was Daniel Jones, and I think having Russell Wilson here will make him a little bit different of a wide receiver. We'll see. Maybe that the type of different wide receiver will not work with Russell Wilson. That is possible, but also might see a new side of him that we didn't know was there. We'll see.
I'm not even worried about the Russell Wilson thing because I mean that's a whole different discussion. But like I don't know how long Russell Wilson's going to be our starter, right? I mean, I
Mhm.
think the way Jackson Dart played in the preseason, and you know, you get the feeling the leash is not going to be very long for Russell Wilson. He's going to have to be pretty good for the team to be able to resist the temptation of putting Jackson Dart in. So I'm not even worried about that dynamic. But the play I keep thinking about is in that preseason game on third down on the out pattern, that Wandell ran on third. I think it was 3rd and 6 or whatever it was. Um, well placed football. He's got the first down. It's right there, and he's not aggressive about attacking the football, and he doesn't have the wingspan and and the arm length to let the ball come to him without the DB having time to close and take the knock the play dead. And I think you see the limitations on tape. Like the guys that are covering him just have more reach, and he doesn't play a style where he makes it really really hard for them to guard him on those plays. And so what are you limited to if you can't really use him on those two consistently? It's just you know it's shit to the flat, it's dump offs, it's slants, it's really short underneath stuff. How much value does that carry?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Um, I think that's a good transition though. Talk a little bit about the season. I think that's the number one thing that everybody's talking about right now. You had a take earlier this week about, how you think that when that move is made, that it's not going to be for the wins and losses. Why don't you, give us a little insight into what you were thinking there, and when you think that something like this might happen.
Yeah. Um, and I'm going to do my regular like shout out here to Alex, Mr. Jaxson Dart here himself, who uh, he was beating that drum all last year, and every single day. Just for those who know, he and Monty had a hilarious argument, literally daily for months, about Jaxson Dart and other. It was very funny. But Alex was very consistent in his Jaxson Dart love, and so good for
Mm-hmm.
him. Um, we were, I went back and watched our review of Jaxson Dart, and we had some good things and some not so good things to say. And I think we had concerns about certain things like the happy feet and the footwork, so the fact that we didn't get to see a lot of processing in that defense, in that offense. Lane Kiffin just was, it was a very pre-programmed type offense, right? And you didn't get to see stuff that you wanted to see necessarily. Didn't mean he didn't have, but you couldn't see it, not consistently. But the stuff we did like was the fact that he was tough and he was able to stand in the pocket and deliver tough throws into tight windows. He had a good arm, good velocity, especially over the middle of the field. We liked all that stuff, right? And I think we made the comment that if he goes to a West Coast type system and he gets to learn under one of those kinds of coaches, this is a kid who can be really good if they give him the time to develop, because that's where his skill is. Fast forward to now, and you're seeing, I don't know, for those who haven't watched it, the Kurt Benkert review of Jaxson Dart is a good review. It's a little fanboy, but it's really good. It's, um, he looks like a different player, right? I think Dart is a guy that looks extraordinarily comfortable back there at quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
something you don't always see from rookies. Very comfortable. He's audibling. He's
Yeah.
making adjustments. Dable turned off the headset on a couple of plays in one of the games, and he was able to run the offense. He's calling in plays on the sideline. He got it. He's identifying defensive, pre-snap stuff and making changes at the line, and he's just comfortable. He's good in the pocket. He's comfortable, and he's delivering catchable footballs in stride. I mean, the guy looks like a pro. He looks ahead of schedule, right?
Mm-hmm.
So very impressed with him. Dable loves him for good reason. The kid had a great summer. I'm thrilled. I think we're all thrilled with Jaxson Dart, what we've seen
Oh,
so
yeah.
far. So to me, he's a lot closer than I think most people, including Dable and Shane, thought he would be at this point to being a
Mm-hmm.
starter. So to address your question, um, I think that Jaxson Dart is going to get inserted in, not necessarily based on just pure win-loss record, which I think was the original and still the most commonly viewed way of doing this. I think Jaxson Dart's coming in the second Brian Dable feels like he's ready to go, which I think
Mm-hmm.
is that question might be answered already. I think he's pretty close.
Yeah.
And B, as soon as Brian Dable looks at the film, irrespective of the outcome of the football game, right? If he's looking at the games and thinking Russell Wilson at his age is a little bit limited running the offense I want to run, and Jaxson Dart would run it better and be more productive. So I can see a scenario where the Giants either are winning or around 500 or just below 500. I'm talking early in the season where, they may be winning mostly off the strength of their defense or close because of the strength of their defense. And Dable just is like, listen, I think this offense could put up more points per game with Dart right now. I think he's comfortable taking, and forget the win-loss record. I just think he's my best shot to win, and I'm putting him in right now. So that's the argument I'm making. I don't think it's necessarily just win-loss. I think it's how Russell Wilson is operating the offense relative to what Dable thinks Dart will do. Even if they're winning football games, I can see a world where Dable's like, we're 2-1, but
Mm-hmm.
something like that, right? We're 2-1, but the offense is not quite where we want it to be, and Dart looks really good, and I kind of want to make the change. It wouldn't shock me if he did that. What
Yeah.
are your thoughts?
I think that'd be a mistake. I do think in the sense of, I understand, like, he might do it because basically he needs to make any excuse he can, because he really just wants to get him out there, and he knows they promised Russ the opportunity to start, so they're going to fulfill their promise. But the first chance they get, maybe they're looking to get Dart out there. I don't think they should stray from their plan. I'm very happy with what Dart put out, but I want him to keep sitting. I want him to keep learning. I think there's plenty to still learn. I think sitting behind a vet like Russell Wilson's kind of like the best case scenario for him. I do think that there's a lot of pressure out there. I think if we're losing, I do think it's going to happen, but I don't think he, I don't think the reasoning will or really should be like, we're winning, but we're not winning the way we want to win. Like at this point, average offense is going to look like elite offense based on what we've been seeing over the last few years. Like average is going to look so good on offense. And I don't think I don't think we're in any position, and I don't think really will be to be like, yeah, we're winning, but yeah, I don't know. Are we winning the way we want to win? Like, no, like this is if we can get average offense and our defense is killing it. Sure, it might be parts of the game that we're not using. We're not using the middle field enough. Russell Wilson's getting sacked a little bit too much, and I'm sure there's gonna be frustrating parts of this experience. But if you have a winning record, keep riding Russell Wilson till the wheels fall off, and at that point, then start him because the worst thing that could happen for Brian Dable, the absolute worst thing that could happen, is they are 3-1, 2-1, 5-4, whatever it might be, and you take Russell Wilson out, and all of a sudden Jaxson Dart just starts losing games, and he doesn't look ready, and you can't go back to Russell Wilson without looking stupid, and now all of a sudden you're losing games, you're not going to get to the milestones that you were clearly going to get to with Russell Wilson. That is the worst thing I think that could happen for them.
So, I mean, it's not a great response to what you're saying because the analogy I'll use played out exactly how you're laying out things could happen, and that's you know the when Eli Manning came in. If you remember, in 2004, Eli Manning came in when the Giants were 5-4.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They had lost a couple of games in a row. They were 5-2 to start. They lost 2 games. They got to 5-4, and the Giants just decided, even though Kurt Warner was actually playing pretty well, they were like, nope, time to put the kid in, and
Yep.
they finished 6-10. So they went one and whatever it was, 1-6 down the stretch with Eli as a rookie. And I get what you're saying that there's
I
risk here for for a head coach who might be on the hot seat,
I
and
think that an Eli Manning situation I think gets Brian Dable fired.
I don't know if it does. You really think it does?
I think so. If you bring in your rookie quarterback who you're banking all this on, he goes 1-6 and struggles down the end. You go 3 straight seasons of 10 or more losses. I think that costs you your job. You lose your golden ticket there.
Yeah, I'm not so sure he gets fired. Um, a lot of it depends on how I think Dart plays and how the team looks overall. But I get what you're saying, that if the wheels fall off, you know, things can get bad in a hurry. Um, I just still think that the team is super psyched about Jackson Dart. And here's my guess on how this will play out. Because I'm pretty bullish on this season. Excessively bullish on this season. But I love what is happening. I do think that they're probably going to play pretty close to 500 football for the first half of the season, I would say. Just about. I know everybody expects them to be horrible. I think they're going to be close to 500, if not around that. Um, and somewhere along the way, I do believe that they're just kind of hovering, 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 staying alive. And somewhere along the way, Brian Dable's just going to say, I think I can break through with the kid, you know? And there will be a conversation with Russell Wilson about it, who I'm sure understands the circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, when Brian Dable decides to turn to Dart, I think they're going to do it in a way where Russell Wilson has an opportunity to be traded to another team.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm willing to bet Russell Wilson and his team are fully aware of this dynamic. They probably didn't know that Jackson Dart would be this far along,
Mm-hmm.
but they're fully aware of the risk here. They're not stupid. They've been around forever. And I'm sure that discussion has happened. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if that discussion has happened with Joe Shane already. Like, hey, look, if you guys decide to go to Dart at some point, give us a chance to find a new place for Russ to go to,
And
and like
they set up his contract in the sense that they could do
to
that.
be easy to move, to be very easy to
Mm-hmm.
move, right? Look at a team like New Orleans. You know,
Hmm.
they do not have quarterbacks, not real ones. And like a guy like Russell Wilson, I mean, I wouldn't try. Everyone was saying, "Oh, are we going to trade DeVito? Or are we going to trade Jameis?" And I always thought, no, we're going to trade Russell Wilson when the time comes. Like the guy who's going to get traded is probably Russell Wilson later in the year, unless he's playing lights out, right? If Russell was playing lights out and he keeps Dart on the bench because there's just no way you can bench Russell Wilson, that's different. But if he plays kind of like Russell Wilson, which is good, solid ball, but maybe not impressive enough to keep them from pulling the trigger and putting the rookie in, I do think they'll do it early enough where he's going to have a chance to be traded to another team. And
I'll
that's how I think this is likely to play out.
I'll give you a team to look out for if that happens. The Miami Dolphins, if you get another two-way injury with Mike McDaniel fighting for his life and Daryl Bevel, their quarterback slash passing game coordinator, former offensive coordinator of Russell Wilson in Seattle.
It's a good, that's you're good with the connections.
Hmm.
And that's a good one. No, I agree. I think, Miami and New Orleans are the teams that look like the most likely to end up needing a quarterback to start at some point in the year, just based on injuries and based on who's in the room. I mean, Cleveland's kind of a shit show, but they have two rookies. I don't think that would be where he would go. You can go down the list. I mean, you never know who gets hurt, right? Like if a starter gets hurt, then anybody who loses a starter is going to be
Hmm.
Russell Wilson looks very attractive to them, no matter who it is at that point, right? And it does happen. I mean, Los Angeles, all right. I mean, the Rams are a team that should be competing for the Super Bowl this year. In fact, they're my team to, I think, likely get to the Super Bowl. Um, it's all predicated on Matt Stafford's health, and he's never healthy. He's always dealing with back stuff, right? If he goes down for a period of time in a competitive division where a few weeks might be the difference between winning, the conference and not making the playoffs, like could a team like him just them to just say, you know what? I mean, he's not a perfect fit for that offense. I understand, but just get a veteran in here, right? Get a guy who's good, who can run this, who can help. There are a lot of teams out there that I think would use Russell Wilson if their quarterback goes down, and there are teams that already need him. So I just suspect the way this is going to go down is the Giants are going to get really antsy to put the kid in. They like what they see. They put him in, and they amicably find a place for Wilson to get traded to. And then you have Jaxson Dart and you have James Winston as your quarterback room, and they'll probably sign some backup quarterback to be their reserve guy, and that's it.
Yeah. I I definitely could see Russell Wilson getting traded. I guess the only spot is I'm different to you is, I mean, think it's two, there's two levels to this. Is one, I think the best case scenario, and I still think they look at the best case scenario, is that Russell Wilson stays in and keeps winning football games. I think if Russell Wilson's winning football games and keeping them alive, I think they would love to keep developing Jaxson Dart and not force him to do anything early. I think they're really happy with the quarterback
Agreed.
room they put around him. Um, I'm also, but the other side is I'm a little bit, I'm a little less optimistic than you. I am very worried about the schedule. This is a gauntlet that we're looking at, and I think that this is a very realistic scenario that we have a losing record early, and that's when you're going to make the move. I don't know when. There's. I feel a little bit better about the Washington game without Sam Cosmi. Feel a little bit better about the Dallas game if they move on for Micah Parsons. I actually feel a lot better about the Dallas game if they move on for Micah Parsons. But we'll see about that one. But regardless, you still have the Chiefs, you still have the Broncos. Saints is a game to watch out for. If you start 1-3, start 0-4, the Saints is a nice landing spot to put Jaxson Dart in for. He has to play the Eagles twice in 3 weeks.
Yeah. Look, I mean, the probable scenario, the probable scenario, based on most conventional wisdom of this team, is they're probably going to have a rough start and probably not going to win a lot of games. I'm taking an outlier view of the team. That's all. It's my personal opinion that I think this will be a more competitive team than people realize.
Mhm.
And I think competitive teams with really good defenses that can keep games close have a much better chance of coin flip outcomes and wins than people realize. And to get to like a 4 or 5 win season, which is like where Vegas has them, you kind of have to believe that they're not in a lot of games. right? Like you can't get to that outcome over and over and again unless you're basically saying they're not even going to be in these games. They're not going to be competitive. Otherwise, you can't get to those outcomes reliably. I think they're much closer to a 500 level team on paper than they are to like a 5-win team on paper.
I agree with you. I agree with you that they are on paper a 500 to just above 500 team in a normal year. But this is one of the toughest schedules I've ever seen us have.
Yeah. No, and that's fair.
And
But
that's
my
not
view on
even
that
me
is
like
this.
looking at us having the toughest schedule, like by which is true. Like we officially have the toughest schedule. That is not even that. It's just looking at this. It's brutal to look at.
No, no, and uh, granted, it is on paper, but I always take schedules before the season with a grain of salt. A lot changes in season, right? I mean, teams that you think are going to be good end up being not as good. Teams that you think are bad end up being good, and injuries happen. It's when you play teams, right? That matters. It's who's healthy on those teams. So I kind of take it with a bit of a grain of salt, right? Like I don't know what the schedule's really going to play out like. I just have a feel for what our roster is, and I just feel like they can go in and week out and be competitive with anybody. That's just my view on it, right? If they
Mhm.
lose 10 games doing that, that doesn't make my view necessarily crazy. It just means they ran into like better teams and better schedule and a hard schedule. But I'm taking the bullish fan optimistic view on this. That's all.
Yeah. And look, if we win, I said this to you the other day. If we win week one versus Washington, I'm gonna be fully diluted into, and we're going 6 17 and 0. But until then, I need to see something.
We're going 17-0 till we lose a game. That's the
Yeah.
way I look at it. But and I mean, it's going to be fun to see how this shakes out, right? Like I think we can debate this stuff all day long, but the dart thing I think is going to be it's going to be the most fascinating aspect of the season is when they pull the trigger on Dart. And I guess in a perfect world, he doesn't play, right? In a perfect
hmm
world, Russell Wilson is playing so well and the Giants are putting up freaking 28 points a game and ripping through wins in a way that you can't justify putting the kid in and he's just sitting there and partying with Jameis and and like learning and getting ready to play like that's the perfect world. It's an unlikely world, It's
Yep.
really unlikely that all those things happen. You'd have for that to happen, you have to not only be winning, but Russ has to be just cooking on offense, right? Like the offense has to be humming. And then you just can't justify benching him because then Malik Neighbors will stab you, right? Like that, like you can't like that's the world in which Russell Wilson doesn't get benched, you
I
know?
mean, I just think you need to be winning football games. If you're winning football games, he can keep his job. I think
Dude, if
that's
you
what
but here's what I'm saying. If you're winning games and you're just barely winning, you're 2-1, 3-2, whatever it is, right?
against good teams.
If you're winning against good teams, fine. But you're winning, and Malik Neighbors is getting, 6 receptions for, 50 yards and not producing, and you're not putting up a ton of points. You're winning on the back. Trust that's a discussion, right?
Malik Neighbors is
It's
gonna get his.
it's just I'm extending a hyperbolic example
I
here.
know. I'm just saying, like, I'm not worried
Yeah,
about Malik Neighbors may be the only person if a struggling offense, but this is the dude who made it work with Danny dump offs and Drew Lock.
right. So again, I think that there is a world in which you can win games with our defense. There's a world in which the defense is getting turnovers, it's harassing the quarterback, the run defense is good enough where it makes it harder on the teams we face to actually put up a lot of points and we can grind through wins. That happens. And if you're grinding through wins but your offense is not humming, that becomes, it absolutely becomes a coaching discussion, right? That it's not inconceivable that could happen. And I think our defense is good enough to make that a possibility. That's kind of I don't think it's a probability, but I think it's a possibility that our defense keeps these teams down and we've got a shot to like put up points. We don't put up a ton. We win games by playing grinded out football and they could make the change anyway. We are working on quarterback Taylor Elgersma. Who is that? Do you know who that
I
is?
no, but I just looked him up. He's a Canadian guy. He's from London.
Another Canadian,
Yeah, the Brian Dable
like
loves his
Nathan York.
Canadians.
Well, see,
Um,
that's because he's from Canada,
yeah, exactly. So,
Buffalo.
he got an invite to the Senior Bowl. His second U Sports player. I'm guessing that's something Canadian to ever play in the game. He was with looks like with the Packers, this practice squad. With this training camp. It looks like in university, as they call it over there,
Hmm.
his last year he had a 73.5% completion percentage for 4,000 yards, 34 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 229 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns. I mean, sure, these like we'll see if he runs to the practice squad. I guess all this tells me is they were hoping to get Tommy DeVito on the practice squad.
6'5", 227, hyper efficient Canadian. He's Curtis Rourke.
Yeah.
That's what that's,
Just go
they
get
really
Curtis
wanted Curtis Rourke.
Rourke.
This could be
Did
the one that got away. Uh,
Curtis
okay.
Rourke make this team?
He went to the 49ers, didn't he?
Oh, he got yeah, he
They drafted him. Let me see if I can.
non-football injured list.
Okay, he's out. Yeah.
Of course he
They
is.
have Mac Jones. I think he made the team though.
Maybe.
Okay. Um, anything else?
I mean, I'm excited for football to be back. But I think this is a good football team. I'm excited to see. I think we've built a good foundation. Um, Sucks that we have a very tough schedule and we're kind of in like year 4 here, but all things aside, I feel pretty good. I don't know. Do you have anything else?
I love this. I just love this season being upon us. I really love where the team is headed. I
I
mean,
love Jaxson Dart.
yeah, you gotta love Jackson Dart. I mean, shout out Alex again. I'm gonna do this all year. Like the kid has brought back juice to this team, and I think
So
he's
much juice.
everybody is so excited about this. How can you not be?
Dude, him and Malik Neighbors, like after you threw that touchdown pass, going jumping up,
Yeah,
like
he's got his quarterback.
it
He's so
just
pumped, and they love Russ too. Like, don't get like you heard Slayton. Like they love the quarterback room. These guys, they're so
mhm,
happy they have real quarterbacks. I'm pumped. I love this defense. I really do. I think Shane Bowen is actually going to do a decent job this year. I love obviously everybody loves their edge rushers and their pass rush. I'm a little bit more bullish on the way this defensive line is going to play also because I think guys are going to come together. I was much more calm by the D line when I saw Roy Robertson Harris in the preseason. I'm like, all right, this guy can play, and you put him next to Dex. I think everything gets better with Dex, all right? You get Dex out there, everything looks better. And I'm pretty pumped about this team. I really am. I'm stoked. I'm going to be at the first game. Um, I think I told you this. I managed
mhm.
to get some tickets to that first game in Washington. So I'll be there for anybody who's going to be there. Just give me a shout out. I will usually meet up with the folks who are going to tailgate. I know Chris Peace has always got a tailgate out there. I believe Spiro and Hefe are going to be at the game. So I'm looking forward to seeing them there. If anybody else is there, just give me a shout out, and I think we can all try to meet up before the game. I'm going to try to get there early for the tailgate. I'm bringing a buddy of mine. He's a big Michigan guy. He doesn't have like a denomination, and when it comes to NFL stuff, he's just hardcore Michigan. Like
Mhm.
like he's so Michigan that every time Michigan loses a game, like you can't find him on Sunday. Like he's in his room. It's a grown ass man with a family and a career. You can like he like hides in his house in his basement, but he's coming to the game with me, and he's gonna have his Giants gear ready to go. So I'm pumped. I think the season's gonna be awesome. I'm ready to go. I'm super pumped to talk about it. I'm super pumped not to give a shit about doing quarterback reviews this year.
Yes.
We will not be doing quarterback reviews for a long time. I mean, I'm gonna go back and look at what was our least viewed episode the first 2 years, and that's the week we're doing quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't care about it at all. But next week, for the folks who are still here, and thank you guys for sticking around for our long ass episodes per usual. We are finally getting into our college football prospects. So we're going to start the
Mhm.
week right before the season starts. So we're going to start our first episode with our first position review, and we haven't even decided what it is yet. The last time we talked about this was a week ago. So let's just decide right now and commit to it for the people with the people here. So
I think
let's go through our choices.
in the top positions we need, I would say interior, both sides, O line,
Yep.
D line, wide receiver. Um, you could say tight end, but corner. I think you can make an argument, especially if Cordell Flott is a free agent.
So let's make this more narrow. Let's stick to the trenches because
Yep.
everybody loves the trenches and we always need it, right? You want to put this to a vote?
Sure.
And we got people who've stuck around here for a long time with us. They deserve a shot at this. So, um, interior O line versus interior D line. You guys go ahead and vote, and we'll do whichever one wins the vote.
Yeah, if you're here, put it in the comments.
Put
We'll
IOL or IDL.
we'll keep talking, and we'll review it at the end of the show and see who you guys go with.
Got one IOL from Rad.
Dev did O line, so okay, we got D line from Momo. Oh, we got some people here. O line
All
from
right,
Young Legend
see?
Forever,
Yeah.
Viewmaster. Okay, more people than I thought stuck around. Hey, shout out you guys.
That's why I'm giving them a shot here. These people are awesome.
Yep. Dev, you get one vote.
Yeah, one vote each. And I'm surprised.
No,
Is if D gets away, he'll vote like 7 times.
Dev was probably
But
just specifying because he said O line, he went interior O line. But D Kid is the king of million
vote
votes
early, vote
here.
often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. It seems like the majority here. You're good, Dev.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
it seems like the majority here is going interior O line.
Oh, and Rad reminded me. Thank you, Rad. We'll
Oh,
get to
yep.
that in a second before we close. Um, looks like interior O line has won from the people who have voted. So we'll do interior O line next week. It looks like, right? Am I counting this right? One,
Yeah.
two, three. Yeah,
Logan Jones.
there we go. So we're going interior O line next week. There you go, folks. We're going to go interior line. We'll include centers and guards. But before I close, thank you. One, thank you guys for sticking around. We will definitely see you next Wednesday to do this episode. But before you go, I want everybody to go to my Twitter page, Sal, who is so back at Queens_guy. I have a pinned tweet. That pinned tweet has instructions on how to properly vote for NFL Fan of the Year, Momo. NFL. So if you go to NFL, if you just look up NFL.com Fan of the Year, there is a voting section for NFL Fan of the Year. Every team gets to pick one. Every fan base gets one NFL Fan of the Year. And whoever gets the most votes wins and gets to go to the Super Bowl, which is freaking awesome. And we have been committed to Momo winning this for a couple of years now. This movement has picked up a lot of traction, Monty. Carl Banks is behind it. For those of you who don't realize, Carl's behind this movement. We have a lot of loyal people on Giants Twitter behind it, like Rad is here, DKit, Peter, Chris Peace, Erica, Lee, a lot of people behind the vote for Momo.
So you have
You
John
know,
Mara now.
John Mara's behind it. I think Chris Rossetti's behind it. Vote for Momo, NFL Fan of the Year. So go to my page, my Twitter page. There's a pinned tweet. It has instructions on how to fill out the ballot because you have to put in the standardized information. First name Momo, last name in mom's basement. You need to put in an email and a phone number for Momo. But guess what? I took the time to create an official vote for Momo email address and a vote for Momo phone number. And all you have to do is just look at what I put in those fields and use that phone number and that email address for the NFL Fan of the Year vote for Momo page. Just copy what I did and just enter it. And you can keep voting. That's the best part. Keep voting over and over and over again. And you will, if we just commit to this as a fan base, Momo wins. Momo becomes Fan of the Year. He goes to the Super Bowl. He gets to shake John Mara's hand, which is something he's always wanted to do. And the best part about this is I'm not going to say who, but there's somebody else who clearly wants to be the Giants NFL Fan of the Year, and he is not happy with Momo at all. He has been very upset with Momo lately, and I think I know why. I don't think he appreciates that Momo is getting NFL Fan of the Year traction when he didn't. So, with all due respect, Momo is the people's choice. So again, NFLfanoftheyear.com. Go to my Twitter page on Sal, who is so back at Queens_guy for my only pinned tweet, my only one. Use the screenshot to fill out the form and vote constantly over and over again for Momo, NFL Fan of the Year.
Incredible. Momo's gonna meet John Mara. John Mara looks like he's really excited for it. This is great.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, everybody, for voting for Momo. Thank you, everybody, for being loyal Giants fans. We have been through some shit. We have been through hell, and I really believe we've come out the other side here, and things are about to get great. So we will see you next week when we do our interior O-line episode. You
What?
got something to go say, Monty?
one last thing before we get out of here. I just wanted to get back. We're back in the college season. I just wanted to highlight a couple games,
Oh, I forgot
to
about that.
watch.
Yes, week 1 coming up.
So I mean, I think the big one, and it's at noon on Saturday on Fox. Number 1 Texas versus number 3 Ohio State. I mean, that is a hell of a game to kick off with this year. I think I don't think there's any other game anybody should be watching. Thankfully, West Virginia is not on to 2 o'clock, so I that's not too much of a conflict. So, but that is the one to watch. I think I'm trying to see what other if there's any. We got LSU versus Clemson at 7:30, and number 9 LSU versus 4 Clemson. I'm telling you right now, Clemson is my pick to win the national
I
championship.
agree.
Or
I agree.
not Clemson. I'm sorry. I misspoke. Clemson knew I do like LSU is my pick.
To win the national title.
Yep.
You're a Nussmeyer groupie.
A
My
Nussmeier guy.
so
Did you see the transfers they got this
yeah,
offseason?
they got a lot of transfers.
Patrick
But
Payton, Nick Anderson.
all right, I'm going to make another case for you.
Clemson's good though. Clemson's a really good team.
Clemson is my pick to make the national title game. And the reason I say that is every year, we've done this pod for 2 years now. This is our third year going into it. Amazing. What we have seen in a trend is we do our top 5 to 10 players per position group every week. And every year that we identify, hey, this team is loaded, and every week they're putting up top 5 guys at every position, right? The same team shows up throughout the year. And then you and I are like, well, shit, this team is loaded. I think they're going to be good. And then they end up making the national title game. 2 years ago, it was Michigan, and they dominated. Last year, the 2 teams that were consistently at the top, the 2 teams that consistently had guys that we loved as prospects all year were Notre Dame and Ohio State. And they were the finalists in the national title game, and Ohio State won it. I'm telling you right now, Clemson is going to be on that list over and over and over again this year. Just a little preview.
They got a lot of guys.
Yeah, and it's not just about the whole team. It's specifically the draft eligible guys, right? The guys who've been there 3+ years, who are, who are draft eligible, who are at the top of their game, and they're a little bit more physically mature than these younger kids. When they're the top 5 guys, that usually is a good sign for the team and its chances of national title. So I'm picking Clemson. Now they may lose this game, who knows? But I think when the dust settles, I expect Clemson to be right there in the thick of it for the title game.
We got to think of some sort of bet or something for this week 1 with both of our natty picks going at it. This is gonna be big though, because that's gonna hurt both their
all right,
chances.
so you're picking LSU to win this game?
Mm-hmm.
I'll pick Clemson. We'll figure out something to bet.
We'll think something. And then there's other games, obviously. I think the other one to watch here though, we got Sunday college football because NFL is not on yet. You got number 6 Notre Dame. I know we have some Notre Dame fans in the chat and in overall who watch the show. Versus number 10 Miami, and we have some Miami fans who watch as well. So, that
Carson Beck revenge season.
Carson Beck revenge season. There you go.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot. College football starts like tomorrow. I think. Right? No. Yeah, I think it starts tomorrow.
Yeah,
there's some games tomorrow for the crazy people who want to watch it like us. There'll be some games. Nebraska Cincinnati's kind of interesting. That's a 9 o'clock game on ESPN tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Boise State, South Florida is decent.
Yeah, I mean, none of these are. I think you're going to be watching some regional games. Friday, not much. I guess Western Illinois is probably one of the better matchups in this one. Georgia Tech, Colorado.
Georgia Tech, Colorado. I think is somewhat interesting.
Okay.
I'm interested to see what that new QB can do for Colorado.
Yeah, but again, if you're going to carve out any time for football this weekend, 12 o'clock on Saturday, 12 to 3. Texas, Ohio State, that is worth, if you have a family, do errands all week, get your shit done early, and be like, leave me alone from 12 o'clock to 3 and watch that game. That's the game to watch.
That's the one to watch.
Yep. All right.
I'll say, John Mary said, how many sacks with Peter Woods and TJ Parker combined for week 1? I will say less than Harold Perkins and Patrick Payton.
That's bullshit. Cop out. Well, since they're going against Garrett Nussmeier, who hurt his leg in the preseason or in camp, I'm going to say,
My fantasy quarterback.
yeah, I'm going to say they have a combined 4 sacks. I think they get to him 4 times.
Let's see. All right.
All right.
That's good.
With that, thank you guys again. It was another beautifully long episode. Thank you for sticking around. Again, follow me at Queens_guy. Follow Monty at MONTECRI5TO. Follow us at He's a Giant Pod. Like, subscribe. Tune in next week when we do our interior O line episode. Enjoy the college football week 1. Until then, go Giants.
Go Giants.